In theory, prison is meant not just to punish, but rehabilitate.
However, rehabilitation seems to be a far-flung theory. Prisoners re-entering society face many challenges, and unfortunately, about half of them end up back in prison. John Pataikes is our criminal justice expert from Seton University, here to talk about that issue. Welcome, John. Let's talk about the issue of re-entering society. It seems to me, as we get real tough on crime, that we don't think a lot about what happens when these guys get out.
Well, it's a good point, Brian, and right now we're having to look very carefully at that, because you see the statistics indicate that 50% of them within 3 years end up reoffending and back in prison. So that is not a good rehabilitation rate. There are several major issues they face when coming out. Employment is one major one. If you don't have a job, what do you do for money? Okay, housing. You know, where are you going to reside? If you have family members still intact and willing to accept you, but many of them don't. You know, and the community you go back to. We find that most criminals, once they come out of prison, they go back to the community they came from. So if you came from a high crime area, most likely you're going back there. So all those same temptations are there, you know. So that's what we're really having to look at now.
So what type of support systems are available for prisoners who have been released, they've paid their debt to society, and are trying the best they can to make a new life for themselves?
Okay, well, about half the people coming out are on parole, meaning that they made some positive adjustment, they got out earlier. They have a parole officer. The parole officer can help them with employment, with housing, etc. So the half that have the parole officer, at least they have an agent working with them on a regular basis to help them re-enter. The other half, the people who they serve their whole sentence, and that's because they didn't make a good adjustment in prison, they come out there on their own. There are some social service agencies. There's, you know, drop-in centers, soup kitchens, food stamps, etc. But perhaps nothing so formalized as a regular agent. So it is a lot tougher for them, you know.
You know, I'm reminded of a movie scene in Shawshank Redemption where a guy gets out of prison after serving 30 years, and all of a sudden he can't make it in regular society. And I wonder if we face that same scenario where you have men and women getting out after very long prison terms with nothing there, no support net at all.
Yeah. Well, what can happen a lot of times is the individual becomes prisonized. You're in there 30 years, that's your whole culture, okay? I mean, I've interviewed a number of people in prison, and a few of them in that age group and had been there a long time said, I'd rather stay in prison. Well, okay, but the prison is not a social service agency, it's a correctional institution. So if you qualify, you're going to be out there, okay? And then what happens is society and social service agencies have to pick up the tab to, you know, help that person in the community.
So you're looking at faith-based initiatives, volunteer groups, things along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, you know, the system unfortunately can't afford to hire as many staff as they can, especially with the economy the way it is. So they're looking toward a lot of other initiatives. Faith-based initiatives are, we appeal to the churches and the people in that community. Are you willing to volunteer to help provide perhaps a job, transportation, counseling, help you write a resume type of thing? So we are getting some responses from that community. I've had somebody from the Department of Corrections recently come and give a presentation at my university asking for student interns and volunteers to help tutor inmates in prison, you know, because they don't have enough educational staff. So there is other opportunities from the public that we can,
well,
you know,
which leads to my next question. What about the availability of job training inside the facilities? What's happening on that front?
Yeah, there is some. It varies from state to state, institution to institution, okay, and meaningful vocational training, okay. So there's more of an emphasis on training them in some marketable skill. You know, whatever skill we train you in, can you get a job on the outside on that? And again, you know, staffing is part of the issue in funding, but one of the things a lot of them are looking at is let's create the parole plan as soon as you enter prison, okay? Because 95% of that population in prison is coming out at some time. The only one staying in is the person under death penalty or life in prison without parole. The majority of those people are coming out, so you have to be realistic to say, okay, we should start planning right away.
You know, there's an old commercial on TV that says it's about oil changes, and the guy says, well, you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Yeah.
And we're in the same position with respect to how we treat prisoners. If we don't do something while they're incarcerated to help them learn new skills, when they come out, they're just older criminals.
Well, yeah, and
they learn to be a better criminal.
That's one of the other things you can learn in there too, unfortunately.
We thank you so much for your time, insight, and analysis, and look forward to having you back again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Professor.
Okay.